Hello, everyone. This is episode number 26 of The Power of Practice, and on today's show, we're going to be talking about getting your needs met in a very healthy type of way. Welcome, everyone, again to The Power of Practice on Air. I'm your host, Lisa Ingalls. I'm an author, a speaker, a mindset mastery coach. I am the founder of Inner State Coaching, where I help visionary leaders to create radical changes in the world by first creating radical changes within themselves. And you can learn more about me and my services by visiting www.innerstatecoaching.com. While you're there, you can also pick up my free report on the 5-step practice for creating radical change. So, in my 20 years of working as a coach, it's become very, very clear to me that creating radical change in your life, whether it's your health, your wealth, your happiness, any part of your life, it isn't about doing certain things. Rather, it's about doing things in a certain way, which requires practice and which is what this show is all about. In this show, you're going to learn practices that will help you turn your stumbling blocks into stepping stones. And if you're joining us live today, please do let us know that you're here. We'd love to know that you're here. Be sure that you comment, join in this discussion with Jay, who is our featured guest. And I would love to hear what you think about this topic of needs. Now, we live in a society where stress and depression and overwhelm and anxiety tend to dominate the inner state of millions and millions of people. They're taking drugs to overcome these inner states of being. And really, at the core of these emotional problems is almost the feeling that our needs are not being met. And it was many years ago that I was doing a lot of work in nonviolent communication, and I'm sure we'll be talking about this with Jay here in just a moment, but one of the things that I learned about needs is that we all have needs, but some of us have conflicting strategies for getting our needs met, and that can create some struggles personally and interpersonally. So I'm really excited about bringing this topic to the forefront and bringing Jay Fizzette once again back onto the show. Welcome, Jay.
Hey, how are you?
The Power of Practice.
So I'm out on my deck, and I think my neighbor just started mowing their lawn. Is that noisy and distracting, or is it okay? Oh.
Oh yeah, I can definitely hear him on the lawn. Why don't you go back into the house, and I'll put myself on the screen. We can still talk as you go in and get your needs for silence met. I know it's hot there in Calgary.
I was all excited about working on the deck.
I know. You know, sometimes we just can't have everything that we want, right?
Exactly. All right. I am in a much quieter spot.
Excellent. For those of you who do not know Jay, Jay is the founder of Personal Best Seminar, a leading seminar company that provides workshops promoting self-awareness and personal growth. He's also the creator of the Creators Code, which is a global community of conscious creators who commit themselves to manifesting lives of meaning, significance, and contribution. And today, Jay is here to talk with us about pillar number 7 of the Creators Code. So, once again, welcome, Jay, to the show.
Hey, I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so glad that I can now hear you, and hopefully you can hear me.
Yes, I hear no lawnmowers in the background now.
It was funny because, right exactly at the instant that we're starting. Anyhow, all good. So thank you for having me. As always, I truly appreciate our conversations, and they are always a ton of fun. And this is, I think, quite perfect timing in terms of this whole conversation of needs. It is, I think, one of the core foundational issues and opportunities that every single one of us as human beings face. So I'm excited for the conversation. I'm excited to share my perspective, and let's get after it.
Yeah, let's get after it. And, you know, I opened up the segment today by I know we're going to go in, I know you have a direction that you want to go to with this discussion of needs, but I'm just going to open up the discussion with the strategies that we use to get our needs met, because, and in the title of this show description, I called it The Difference Between Being Needy and Having Needs, because I think, and I'm going to just say as a woman, women a lot of times get labeled, oh, she's so needy. You know, it's like, well, we all have needs, but it's the way that the strategies that we use to get our needs met that make us seem maybe more needy, whether we're male or female. It just seems like women get pinned more often than men do with being needy. Well, I don't know. We could just open up there, because that might, as it always does, flow into your take on things.
Well, I number one, I thought the title of the show was both cool and cute and appropriate. But you know, I think that there's a larger issue than the labeling, and I actually think that this labeling of that can be gender twisted, but I actually think that the labeling is a symptom of a much deeper issue with this, which is people's fundamental denial or unconsciousness or rejection of their core needs. And in that denial, rejection, and that entire process, we end up doing wacky and crazy things. And you know, I'll go so far as to say, if everyone who is on the call, you, Lisa, me, Jay, if we were to take a moment or two to look back in our life and in our world at the sort of nuttiest, craziest, you know, I could go on, but the sort of wackiest behaviors that we have had in our lives, in relationships, in business, in all those sorts of things, every time we are out to lunch, we are being driven by an unconscious, usually, sometimes it's conscious, but it's normally an unconscious, unmet need. And if we can begin to just tell the truth about this, is that I get wacky, people get wacky, I am least myself when my needs are unmet. We can just begin to tell the truth about, well, why don't we just figure out what the hell they are, put them on the table, structure relationships such that we can serve and support one another and get them met. Like, if we could just do that.
I think that's such a good point, because most of us aren't even aware what our core needs are. Number one, I'm like curious, like, because I think that in and of itself is a really great conversation. What are our needs? What are our core needs? But number two, one thing that I discovered in my own process and my own personal journey was that, oh my gosh, I have this need. Is it even okay for me to have this need? Which, of course, goes into a whole rabbit hole of other things. You know what I mean? Like being worthy and deserving, and it's okay to have these core fundamental needs and, and ask for your needs to be met, whether it's by yourself or, you know. So anyways, going back to this idea of let's get to the core issue here, which is we have needs, and we need to first be aware of what those needs are. That's what I hear you saying.
Yes, and I'll even take it a step further from just we have needs, is that the vast majority of humanity is walking around being more motivated and driven by their unmet needs than any other single factor. So what I want you to consider about that, and I want us to both talk around it and then play with a couple of examples, and then of course see what sort of practice we could share with the crew, right? So think of it from this perspective, is that if I am more motivated and I am behaving in a way that is really driven by my unmet needs, what it actually means for most human beings is that they are actually not conscious of what it is that they genuinely want to create, who it is that they really are. They are just in the midst of trying to fill the gaping hole, or to feel accepted, or to increase their self-esteem, or to have somebody tell them they love them, or to have some role of significance and importance, or to be perceived as smart and intelligent, and the list goes on and on and on. But just check in, and I'm just going to ask everybody just to check in, is that right now in your life, what behaviors, what feelings, and what actions are actually being driven by unmet needs. And by the way, this doesn't have to be very complex. So here's just a super simple example. So this morning, I snapped at my oldest boy, Wyatt. Not proud of snapping at Wyatt, but it happened. And on the third topic, I was asking him for the 7th time to do something. Sometimes I'm quite patient, other times not so much. So on the third one, it's like, geez, get your ass in there and brush your teeth. I know no parent here can relate to that in any way, shape, or form. Now, so I get snarky, but is this thing really about him brushing his teeth?
Yeah, no.
Not in any way, shape, or form. What's it really about? It's my need and my expectation to be respected and listened to and to have a cooperative home. Those are all things that I value incredibly highly. Now, let's be clear about this. Me snarking at him, is that a viable long-term solution to have that need met?
Right. So here's my little, I don't know if it's devil's advocate to you, is when we're in those situations and we have these needs that need to be met. Yours, you're saying, to be to have that respect in the house. There comes a point, and I think you go along with this, is we need to take responsibility for our needs, and that our needs cannot always be met by someone else. So we need to take responsibility for our own needs and getting our own needs met. Yes,
primarily. There's a key piece to this, and let me just finish up that conversation. Then let's dive into what you're saying, because I 100%, I think you and I are on the same page. We might say it slightly differently. My point is, with that example, is that I snark at him. He will shift it, but he does so in a state of resistance, which actually does not move. It solves the present problem, but it doesn't actually move us forward in a really powerful way down the road of greater respect, greater listening, more significant cooperation, working together as a family to get out the door in the morning, all of those pieces. Right. It solves a mechanic, but it actually, and this is the important part why I use this example, it actually works against the long-term need. Okay, so let me just be clear about this, because I want everybody at home to follow. He doesn't listen. I have values about being listened to and respect and cooperation, all those sorts of things. I snark, I get a behavioral change, but it actually moves us further back from him being self-directed, taking care of what is necessary, and cooperating as a family in the morning. So most of us have created these little processes, which is this. We cope with the momentary issue or what's triggering us, but that moves us further away from having the core need met. That was just my point in that mechanic. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. And I'm going to take a quick break here before we go on to just acknowledge some of the people that are showing up here. We have Cameron Young, Kat Schreier is here, Rick Botello is here, Cheryl Deuce is here. Welcome, everybody, to the show. Thanks for showing up. And we see some comments coming in too. I'm going to pull one up for you from Cameron here, Jay. He says, I like Jay's point about being driven by conscious needs. My question is, how do I identify my needs now?
So, tremendous question. And truthfully, we go through a 3-day transformational program to really help people begin to get a hold and a handle on their needs. So it can be difficult for us to do on our own, because we have the filter through which, look, the kid's supposed to brush his teeth so we can go to get out the door, right? So that's this thing. So generally speaking, what has to happen to begin to identify what is driving us is to look at the themes and the patterns of where we have conflict, the themes and the patterns of where we're disappointed, the themes and the patterns of where we feel frustrated, annoyed, unloved, disrespected, not listened to, all of those pieces. When we pay attention to those themes, that is where the underlying piece, and it usually takes having support of somebody else, the underlying themes of what is going on for my needs will surface themselves. And then we can go about getting our needs met in more clear, healthy, and direct manners.
So, yeah, that makes sense. Basically, anytime you're triggered. That's what I hear you say. Like, you feel those triggers, a need is probably not being met. So would
Guaranteed.
you, in your opinion, are there, would you, because I could say, I have a list of needs that's like 100 or 200 needs, but really, doesn't it come down to just a few core needs, or what's your take on that? I mean, we obviously have the need to be loved, the need to be seen, to connect, and these types of things. Those could be expanded into, the nuances of those. But what's your take on core needs?
Well, this is gonna. I'm sorry, at least I'm editing myself because it's like, how long do we have?
It's always like this with you, Jay.
So let's talk about this from a perspective of there are absolutely core needs, and we could put the absolute top of the list is, I'm going to call it recognition, which really means love, or what we perceive to be a reasonable facsimile thereof. So that is being included, that is being respected, that is being loved, that is being appreciated, that is having approval, that is like, there's this whole body of work around this. In my book, Reframe Your Blame, there's a couple of little charts related to this. So recognition is one of the single most significant driving forms and factors. Now, just a little sidebar to this is that going back to my example that I just used with Wyatt of, I got a problem solved, but I didn't move us further along the route of greater cooperation and him being more self-directed. Often we have recognition needs, but because we're afraid of rejection, because we're afraid I might be turned down, because we're afraid it might not come in the package that we want, men particularly will pretend, oh, we don't really have any needs. I'm all good. All I need is a couple of beer, and I need to watch the sports, and I'd like to have a guy's night out, a couple of, and it's all going to be good. So one way of coping with it is to pretend it doesn't exist. Another way of coping with it is to detail the 200 things and and then be perceived as needy. And we all have different coping mechanisms, neither of which, by the way, really get to the core of what it is that they really want and need. So love is at the top of the list. And now I'm going to throw some crazy ones at you, because here's an interesting one, is that most human beings have a significant need for an excuse. Now, this is interesting because, and I want you to think about this from this perspective, is that we all had this vision of how our life was going to be, right? We were going to be, millionaires, happily married, living on our villa in France in winter, and whatever that happened to be, right? So we've got the vision for how our life was supposed to be, and then we have our right now lived experience. And for most people, there's a bit of a gap. Our brains has to make up a story about that gap. So whenever we think it's going to be some way, and we say to ourselves it's going to be some way, but we don't actually measure up to that, what do we need to fill in the gap?
We need an excuse.
An excuse and a justification.
To make meaning of it, so that we understand the gap, why the gap is there.
Precisely, which is, again, going back to my book, that entire book called Reframe Your Blame is another way of saying, hey, let's tell the truth about the stories we made up about the gaps in our life. That's really what we're talking about.
I want to bring up a comment from Cheryl, because I think this is a great comment, and it's one that you probably get a lot in your work. If you're with a partner that is emotionally incapable of meeting your needs, how can you meet your needs and still support them without feeling that you're sacrificing your needs? Great question, Cheryl.
It really is. So here's the standard to which I ask people to do their best to create their relationships. And the standard is this, is that if you could get so clear in your relationships that this could be the standard, which is, if I ask you directly, so no hooks, no manipulation, no, oh, please, or drama bullshit, I just ask directly. If I ask directly, and it's physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually possible for you to deliver it, and then you simply do, for no other reason than I asked, and of course, vice versa. That becomes the standard. Now, if I can't, then I say no, and this is the reason why, and I still support you in getting that need met, just not with and through me, because my capacity to deliver it has nothing to do with your need. The question is, am I willing? That's the first one, and that's the willingness in many relationships just ain't that high, which is a whole different problem. Then the second part is my actual capacity, because if you're asking Mother Hubbard for a sandwich, but her cupboards are bare, there's nothing that can be done anyway. So the first point is, the standard by which I ask people to evaluate their relationships is, can you make a clear and direct request with great faith that it is physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually possible for your partner to participate, that they would, or say no and support you and get them met elsewhere. So that standard is a lofty standard based on most people's relationships.
And Jay, I'm going to really quick, because I just am thinking of this off of the top of my head. As you're saying that, is then if in the case when your partner says no, I can't meet your needs, don't take it personally.
Yes, and at least we can have it on the conversation. Is like, and so Corey and I, and please understand. So my dear wife and I, we this is dating us ever so slightly, but we will have been together for 30 years, August 3rd. So we've had a couple of ups and downs in 30 years, as you might imagine. Now, we strive for this standard, but even when it's like, no, I can't do that, then it is on the table for us to actually have a discussion about. And it's like, hon, I'm exhausted, I'm frustrated, I'm this, I'm that. I just, can you go and have coffee with your girlfriends? Can you go to church? Can you go meditate? Like, is there another way? And vice versa. It's like, look, I'm exhausted. I haven't slept for 2 years when we had Jackson. I really just don't feel like having sex right now. Well, fair enough. I can understand that. So, but the difference in that conversation and having that standing arrangement is that it shifts how people feel about, number one, validating their needs, about the fact that I care enough about her to say, could you go do it this way? Could I watch the kids? Could you go, like that we're collaborating in the simple acknowledgement that we both have them and that we care enough about one another to try and figure them out. So anyway, that's the standard. Now going back to the core of her question, which is this, is that if I'm in a relationship with someone who is perpetually unable or unwilling, because she just said who doesn't, and I'd need to poke and prod more to the unwilling and unable. So what that really boils down to, if I'm in a relation with somebody who is unwilling / unable, and we need to figure out which is which and how much of which is which, then I've got to actually ask the question of this, and this might sound a little crazy, but hear me out. What need is being fulfilled of mine being in a relationship where I don't get my needs met? Okay, so going back to this excuse, that's one of the sort of crazier needs that we as human beings have. But we as human beings also have another very powerful need. In fact, it's one of the most driving needs under the sun, perhaps even more powerful than love. Now that sounds crazy, but perhaps even more powerful than love, and here's why. Is that we have a need to be right. We have a need to protect the beliefs that we hold about ourselves and the world around us, and we will protect those beliefs at the expense of love over and over and over and over and over again. So if I have a belief that says, I'm not honored, I'm not respected, I don't get my needs met, it's my job to serve and support them, I'm the last on the list, all of those pieces, is that we will actually create relationships where our needs are not met, and we've got a great reason to stay in them because they need our help, we need to support them, or they'd be lost without us, all of those pieces. So this gets complex fast. And it's one of the reasons why this is one of the most powerful and significant topics about human evolution and consciousness. Because if we don't figure this shit out, we're just gerbils on the treadmill of life.
Yeah, it's real. I love everything that you're talking about. And, of course, we're getting to time, and more people are showing up. I love this. You guys, thanks I see the discussion going on. And Kristen Drysdale has come in. And Kat, actually, I want you to respond to this, and then I want you to give, after I have you respond to Kat's thing that I'm going to put up here in just a second, I want to go into how we get the practice that you're going to share with us, Jay. Mm-hmm. So here I am. I'm going to pull up Kat's comment. She says, Jay Fizzette, I need not to need. I need not my feelings or anyone else's, just be numb. Life is so much better, and I get more done and make more money when I stay in my head and just focus feelings, relationships, and needs. Comments, Jay?
Well, actually, can you put it up? Because I want to dissect the statement, because there's a series of dichotomies there. So, you know, the Buddhists have a version of I want not to want. That, you know, the foundation of suffering is in, you know, all of my expectations and things that are not fulfilled and all of that fun, wonderful stuff, which is an interesting process. I need not to feel, not my feelings or anyone else's. So that's a setup for denial, and it's a setup that is going to bite our ass. Now, have every single one of us in our life chosen to do that at some time or another, which is, you know what, head down, I'm not gonna go there, I'm just gonna do what I gotta do and navigate my way through? Yes, of course we have. Can it help us navigate our way through some what I'm gonna call rough and choppy water? Yes. But please be conscious of the choice, and please recognize that that is not a sustainable solution. As human beings, we have these feelings, we have these ups, we have these downs. It is part and parcel of what transpires for all of us. So, as a coping mechanism, fine, do what you got to do in the short span, and that's all I really want to look at, Lisa. As a coping mechanism, do what you got to do in the short term. I don't think there's a single person on this call who hasn't made that decision, which is just got to set that shit aside and cope with what's going on. So, but understand that is crisis management. That is not consciousness, and that is not a sustainable solution for the rest of our lives. It will keep people at a distance. It will harm our overall mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual health. So make that decision and figure out what's the support necessary to make the transition out of that as well. Does that make any sense to you, Lisa? Do you want to add anything to it?
Yeah, that makes total sense. And one of the things that I practice all the time is feeling the feeling, because it wants our experiences. I said this, I forget, I think I was on Andy Lyon's show yesterday, and we're talking about sort of something similar, and I'm saying the experience wants to be experienced. That's why we're having it. That's how
whether we like it or not.
Whether we like it or not. In the same way, with every experience comes feelings, and feelings want to be felt. And the amazing thing is that they move through you. It's that whole idea that people talk about of emotion, energy, and motion. It moves through you when you let it. So anyways, that would be my only comment on that.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead.
Well, and I just think, and that's exactly what I mean by, head down, getting some work done. I'm going to avoid that stuff and not let myself feel. Can be a coping strategy, but it's just not sustainable because it's going to surface. It's going to bite us in the ass. It's going to show up, and often at the most inopportune times when we take an avoidance strategy. Just as simple and clear as that. So we've sort of jumped around at a variety of pieces that I think are fascinating. The element around this, and if I were just to try and boil this down into a handful of steps, here's the first point, is that we must simply tell the truth that as human beings we have needs. Let's tell the next step of the truth, is that the vast majority of us are motivated more by our unmet needs than anything else under the sun. And just think about relationships, think about how we connect with other people, think about our physical health and well-being, think about our self-care, it is just this epic driver. And then the third part is, if we got our needs fulfilled, and I was just glancing at the comments when you were chatting there, Lisa, is there seems to be this well, what about self-sufficiency and getting my own needs met versus having other people meet my needs, all of those pieces. So I just want to speak to this for a brief moment, and I know I'm derailing my own little train of thought there, but it's like, So I've been at this 25 years. Most of the people, I think, who are following our conversations for the last 7 months know that this isn't my first canoe trip. Well, what's the other one? Or I didn't just fall off the pineapple truck. I fell off quite some time ago.
Right.
So one of the trends that I have seen ebb and flow several times in the process of this work is this idea of, I'm just going to become conscious, and I'm going to fulfill my own needs, and I'm going to transcend, and I'm going to be enlightened, and this is how this is going to go. I don't need anyone else. I have now, ascended. And the honest to goodness truth about this is, if we were, I didn't plug in my tablet to draw this, so please just bear with me for a moment or two. Think of Abraham Maslow. The bottom of the hierarchy of needs is simply basic survival stuff. So air, food, sex, shelter, like making our way through that. The next piece is belonging, making sure that we're not getting kicked out of the tribe and eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. The next step up of that is love. And then there's, higher esteem, lower esteem, higher esteem, and self-actualization. Should I plug my thing in and draw this, or do you think people are following along? We're all pretty familiar with that, don't you think?
Yeah, I think we're good. Yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense.
So here's really, if you look in the world at what's going on, is that most people are still struggling at some level of belonging and love. That's what's going on. We're struggling at belonging and love. And we have a bunch of people going, it's like, oh, I'm having a little trouble with this belonging and love thing. So what I think I'm going to do is I'll just circumvent and jump past belonging, love, lower esteem, higher esteem, and I'll become self-actualized, and then I won't need to deal with all that dumb shit down at belonging and love. And the best way I can describe that is, that's like saying you're going to jump the Grand Canyon on a tricycle. You can pedal as fast as your little heart desires, but if you're still struggling with belonging and love, self-actualization isn't on your menu.
Right, and the only way to self-actualization is through it. Like, you have to go through the entire trajectory. You can't leap over. Yes. You have to go through it to get to it.
Exactly. So, Maslow's, what I think was, quite brilliant work, that wasn't a roadmap. That wasn't, it's like, oh, I can take the shortcut. Ta-da! That's not how it goes. So the answer to this question of meeting my own needs and having other people meet needs and collaborating in the co-creation of having our needs met is the process to getting to the spot of self-actualization where, please hear this, for the most part, those things aren't necessary because you have gotten to a space where your core and fundamental needs are met. But you didn't meet them through meditating and getting them, ta-da, I'll do it myself. You actually became a self-actualized person through the interactions, the conversations, the negotiations, the feeding and fueling of one another's soul that landed you there. So it's a both and I just got to say really, really clearly, you can't navigate belonging, love, lower esteem, and higher esteem without being fully accountable for your needs, without recognizing that this isn't all an external game, without owning being in a 30-year relationship and saying, you know what, I love you deeply. These things are working fantastic, and I will always be a part of your life. And we got to get this part handled because it's changed, because we had a second kid, because we moved, because I changed my business, because I got old, because now I have gray hair. It's looking there. It's like now I have less hair. It's like
that's just because you have a haircut. It's not that you have less hair. You're not fooling us, Jay.
Yeah, let's go with that. It's a haircut. But that's the process, and I hope I'm not beating the horse to death. But in my view, whenever I hear somebody lean towards it's like, oh, I'm just going to do it, it's a very powerful red flag that there are issues and struggles at belonging and love that they're attempting to short circuit.
Right. And there is no short. This journey isn't short. There are no shortcuts in the journey. And okay, so here's what you've said so far is a little recap, because I think I just want to make sure, and maybe it needs to be finished. Number one, we need to tell the truth that I actually have needs. Number two, we need to understand, or I need to understand, that I'm motivated primarily by my unmet and usually unconscious needs. Tell me if I'm on track. Are those two right?
Totally.
Okay.
Yes. Now,
number three.
We have to look at our patterns of where we are being, in your words, activated, where our traditional feelings of sadness, disconnection, frustration, it's not going fast enough, I'm underappreciated, people are in my space, like whatever our stuff is, every single one of our recurring patterns of, we'll call it resistance, activation, frustration, lack of peace, every single one of them is our belief system in the universe saying, there's an unmet need that you are striving to get fulfilled. So you must look past the content, and this is part of the reason I used the example with Wyatt this morning. Number one, it was fresh, and number two, it's real, is that the content is him not listening and me getting frustrated. That's the content. The context is what? My need, desire for a loving, peaceful, cooperative home. That's the big thing. Whenever I get irked, pissed off, activated is what I'm trying to say, is that it is generally around some theme of my environment, my sanctuary, my family, the people that I love, all those sorts of things. We're at friction in some way, shape, or form. And that friction I get frustrated about, and I try to fix the friction. Generally speaking, if I'm activated, how do I try and fix the friction? By adding friction. You think that's how it's going to go.
Yeah.
Super good, super smart.
So then step number 3 is becoming aware of your patterns, becoming aware of when you're triggered, and noticing what you notice. So that practice of becoming aware.
Yes.
Of your patterns.
What is the big context? What is the unmet need that is in play when I'm having this reaction? So everyone can write that down. What is the unmet need that is in play when I'm having this reaction?
And you just ask yourself, literally, during that time, okay, I'm pissed off right now. And be curious. Yes. What is my unmet need? Well, I need it to be quiet here because it's just too loud. And maybe what's underneath that need? Well, what's the need underneath the need to be quiet? Well, I'm just feeling like crammed up and too much, not enough space, or whatever it might be. You can go with that sort of a line of inquiry.
Yes.
That's what I would do.
And in my experience, what happens is the more we practice it, the deeper the answer becomes. Because honestly, it usually starts at what I'm going to call content solutions. Well, the content is, if he just brushed his teeth every single morning, everything would be fine. We wouldn't really have to have this fight. I mean, it's only been 8 years, 8 times 365 days. We've done it every single day. It's not rocket science. That's all my justification about the bullshit of the content. But the context is, I'm frankly dissatisfied with how we are working together as a family and some of the friction and the difficulties in having a morning routine that is smooth, peaceful, loving, and kind. That's the heart of it. Underneath that is what I value as a family, what I value as a father, what I value as the experiences, how I want my goodbyes to be at the door and at the school. One of the things I value most is a genuine, I love you, have a fantastic day. And if I got hit by lightning, everyone in my family, last time I saw them, I told them what was most important. That is one of my prime values. So I don't want my little guy to go to school and me having a frustrating, well, I love you.
Yeah.
It's inconsistent with who and what I want to be in my world.
Right.
So, am I making sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So the depth of the answer of what is the unmet need will continue to go deeper and deeper and deeper the more you practice this. And the more honest I am with myself, and by the way, this is one of the beauties. This is why Corey and I have been together for 30 years. Ups, downs, middles, all that fun stuff, is that we can have that conversation and say, you know what I'm really frustrated about right now is this is what's going on, and and then we can have a little talk, and it's like, okay, on we go. But it's the willingness to address and tell the truth about it that makes coping with it better.
Absolutely. So now we've gone, I have needs. I'm recognizing I have needs, and that I'm motivated primarily by my unmet needs. And wow, I'm seeing this pattern that I'm getting triggered. And the underlying need that's not being met right now is XYZ. Is there a fourth step?
Yes.
We're changing.
It's almost like you and I.
We're changing venues here with you.
Yeah, I must sit up.
Okay.
So it just brings us to the fourth piece, which is this, and this is what we spend an inordinate amount of time together when we're working on the gift, which is our 3-day transformational program that is beautiful at taking an in-depth look at this. Is simply this, and how can I, and this is the ownership piece that I think people were alluding to, and how can I take actions both individually and personally and within my relationships, life, work, business, family, kids, the whole bit. How can I get those needs met more cleanly, more clearly, and in a more healthy manner? Now, oftentimes we can't see it because it's hanging off the end of our nose, and this is where working, with a coach like Lisa or with a coach like me or participating in a transformational program is we have that experience of stepping outside of ourselves, or at least having feedback about, well, hey, what about this? Well, hey, how are we going to do this? Because here's the son of a bitch about this, and I can't say it clearly enough, is that if we have beliefs about worthy and deservingness, that I'm not quite good enough, or I'm not quite lovable enough, or I'm not quite smart enough, or skinny enough, or tall enough, or whatever the case may be, what happens is that we actually unconsciously design our lives to reinforce and to be right about those beliefs. So then trying to get our needs met, which is to build our self-esteem, to acknowledge our worth, to make a meaningful contribution, we can't really see those things because it's sort of like covered from our eyes, because we designed a life to be right about the opposite. So that's why to really get our needs met, we need a transcendent experience. We need a revolution of seeing ourselves, and it almost always includes other people. That's one of the reasons why, you don't get to self-actualization without love and belonging, because you got to figure the thing out within the context of relationships, because we can't see.
Right. Yeah. This is the collective experience that has to come into play, the individual within the collective, and it's something I keep talking about over and over again on all these hangouts, the me versus the we, and our awakening, and the awakening that's happening right now on this planet is happening because of we, not because of me, and it's happening because of my individual experience with us and the we, and so it speaks to that of we can't get to that self-actualization without our experiences with other people.
Mm-hmm. And without a doubt. So let's just take it one step further then, is that the assignment. So we've gotten all the way through, and I recognize, so I want to get my needs met in a more healthy, clear, clean, and direct manner. Some of those things are going to be internal, some of those things are going to be external. But here's the standing assignment that helps this process gain traction wherever we are. And it is simply this: to ask directly for what I want. Okay? And that applies home, that applies relationships, that applies business, that applies joint venture partners, that applies everywhere, to ask directly for what we want. Now, so let's go back to parenting. So I shared an example of where, in my view, I had a parenting fail this morning. But I'll tell you where I think I have done stunningly well over the big picture of being a dad, which is simply this, is that we spend an inordinate amount of time rewarding one single action, which is, if you ask directly for what you want, no whining, no pouting, no hooks, no stamping feet, no song and dance, no guilt trip, no stuff. If you ask directly for what you want, we will always do our best to fulfill it, and or say no with clear reasoning so you understand what's going on. Now, my boys both do stunningly well in asking directly for what they want. Jackson, who just turned 4, has been taking a little dip into a little bit of whining and pouting, which I think he's learned from his 4-year-old girlfriend, who has a pretty good act, to be frank. But it's like so.
His 4-year-old girlfriend?
Yes, you should see.
How old is he?
He just turned 4 on the 22nd.
Oh, they're both 4. Okay, so
yes.
He's not robbing the cradle.
No, in fact, she's slightly older. It might be the other way around. It's actually just I got to show you this because I just 100% think this is one of the coolest pictures ever, and sort of describes that whole thing. But so I think he's picked up a little bit of this performing, and we've just had, so Jackson, I understand.
Mind you, is this the same son that the last time we talked on our show decided he was going to leave home for good and packed up and walked down the street with his little backpack suitcase?
No, that was Wyatt.
Okay.
That's the 8-year-old. That was the toothbrushing issue this morning.
Okay.
So I just want to show you this because I think it's cute. So go here, screen share. Here we go. So that is Jackson on the right and his girlfriend on the left.
Oh my God, they're so adorable.
Aren't they sweet? And if you look carefully, you can see they each have their superhero capes on there.
Yes. Oh my God, that's great.
Anyway, but the whole thing is that he'll come back and have a little pout on, and it's like, you know what, that can't get you what you want. That will just never work. And so then he asks clearly, cleanly, and directly, and then we deliver. So it's just that piece that is so important for kids is perhaps even more important for adults, which is in our lives right now, we all want greater support. We all want greater love. We all want to be seen and heard. We all want business success. We all want, the laundry list goes on. Well, what if today you just did two different things? What if today, as the day unfolds, you ask the bigger and important question? What need isn't being met? What need is at play? And the next part is, how can I ask directly for that need to be met? And please understand, it doesn't mean it's going to be met. But what it does mean is that you have engaged heart, mind, and soul. You've told yourself the truth. You've put it on the table. You've given it some life and some support and the possibility for it to be met. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, is what we're really up to. So those are the steps and stages in the big picture, assuming that we've got some conscious people on the line who know, yes, I know I have needs, yes, I'm going to tell myself the truth. Then it gets to managing ourselves and asking directly for what we want. So let me go full circle to the end of the story with Wyatt. So I take Wyatt and Jackson to camp/daycare this morning, and we just have a little huddle. And the little huddle sounds a little bit like this. We only have one family. And the time that we spend in our home, that's our sanctuary. That's where we build each other up. That's the safe place for us to go when we're not having a great time. That's the place where we do our best to communicate love, kindness, and joy. That's where we learn. That's where it's safe to make mistakes. That's our home. And I just want for us to always know that it's the best, safest, most amazing place on planet Earth, and we do that by respecting one another, by helping each other out, by being cooperative, and let's have a little reset. And all three of us hug each other, give each other a kiss, I leave, and it's, I love you, Dad, I love you, Dad, I love you, Dad, I love you, boys. And we ended with a great experience because it was doing exactly the same thing of what do I really want? I want our home to be a sanctuary of kindness, love, encouragement, and even I'm guilty of getting frustrated and not being that way, in which case I say, sorry, let's reset, this is what we're really trying to do. Works beautifully.
Yeah, great story. And people are asking if that 4-part practice will be put into the comments. So I want to let everybody know that we'll be sure to put those 4 steps into the comments of this event page as well.
And really, just to be clear, it's 5 steps because after the 4th one is what need is at play, and then the 5th one, and this is perhaps the most important one, is to ask directly for what it is that I want. And by the way, notice I didn't say ask somebody else, because sometimes what we're asking is for ourselves. What I need to ask for is be a little more patient with myself. Right? So ask directly for what it is that I want. Sometimes that's external, sometimes that's internal, sometimes that's a little bit of both.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, so is that just to be clear on the steps, that the question of how can I take action or what can I do to get this need met, that's a step separate from the step of asking directly for what I want, or those one and the same?
No, that's one and the same in my books. So it's just, so what can I do? Because here's the thing about what can I, in my belief, if we go back to this idea of Maslow, is that if most people are really struggling at belonging and love, the what do I need to ask is more powerful than what do I need to do, because it implies that it's going to be done with another person, or at least in conversation, or any of those pieces. Because if we say, what am I supposed to do, and it's like, well, great, I'm going to go meditate, or I'm going to go run, or I'm just going to work a little bit harder, or I'm going to make another sales call. It's not really the heart of it. Is that so? Ask directly for what you want almost always includes another person. Not exclusively, but almost always. And when we're really struggling and working on getting our belonging and love needs met, that's the place to start.
Okay, so then let me be clear in what the steps are, because I have 4 steps, but you said there's 5. But I'm going to say them, and you're going to correct me as I go through. As we recap this whole thing, and then Jay's going to tell you how you can get in touch with him and some other good things he has coming up. Number 1 is to recognize, heck, I have needs. That's just, I'm human, I have needs. Number 2, I'm motivated primarily by my unmet needs. Oftentimes those needs are unconscious. Number 3, I'm going to be accountable for my needs by noticing that I'm getting triggered, and there's a pattern going on here, and those triggers are really unmet needs. And then what I'm saying is the last step, is to ask directly for what it is that I need and what am I missing.
So you didn't miss anything. You just blended 2 pieces together that I think are really important.
Okay, good. This will bring clarity then.
So the triggers aren't the unmet needs. The trigger is the content or the drama or the day-to-day operation of our lives or trying to get out the door. Okay, that's that piece. But asking the question of what is my unmet need underneath is really a process of like peeling away the layers of the onion, and we will tell ourselves more and more of the truth about it as we go through the process. So those 2 things, while tightly related, as you had said it, Lisa, for the purposes of people being able to really do the practice, that needs to be in neon flashing lights that says the trigger is only the sign. What we now must do is pose the question and answer the question. So what's really the unmet need? What's really going on underneath the drama, the conversation, the frustration, the brush your damn teeth now experience? Okay,
got it. I am very clear on that now. Perfect. Great clarification there, because I did blend those. Excellent. Oh my gosh, this went by, and you know what? I know we could have this discussion could go, because like I'm my mind, I'm going, okay, we could go over here on how to ask, and we could go over here on like all these other things, and of course we don't have time for that. And want to thank you so much, as always, for coming on the show with such great. What I love about having you on the show, Jay, is that we have real dialogue. We have a real discussion here. It's not just fluff that's coming up, and we can tell that by the comment stream, by the amount of viewers, the live viewers that are showing up for this show today, and people are actually resharing and telling other people to come over, and people are coming over because they're being told, hey, there's a good thing going on here. So to me that means that we're doing our work in the world, and I know we're helping people in a really big way, and I appreciate that about you and the passion that you come to the show with. Your knowledge, your wisdom, your openness, your ability to be open and answer questions and be in the dialogue and in the discussion, because that's where our personal evolution takes place. And I appreciate that about you. I love it. And want you to be able to tell people how they can get a hold of you. I know you have some things going on. I think you told me in the green room. So go ahead and...
I got about 12 million things going on in our world right now, but let me share just a couple of things. So first and foremost is that I referenced my book a couple of times, and if you have not read my book, Reframe Your Blame: How to Be Personally Accountable, I strongly recommend you do, and you can actually get a complimentary copy of that at my blog, which is jfazette.com. If you go there, there's a little opt-in box, and you'll get a 12-week little e-course plus a download of my book. So that's an easy way to just find out more about who I am, what I do, all that fun, wonderful stuff. Give you fair warning, I have not been blogging much. I have been playing with kids and enjoying what seems like 3 or 4 days of sunshine in Canada. So there aren't a ton of fresh posts there, but I do actually write quite a bit. So there's that. If any of you are interested in any sort of or have considered, if you're coaches or trainers, integrating mastermind groups into your business offerings, please just send me a quick email and I will share a ton of resources. We're just actually at the tail end of a launch for a program called Launch Your Mastermind 90-Day Bootcamp, which is honestly phenomenal. And basically it aggregates 25 years of my experience with a bunch of turnkey manuals and support to roll out mastermind groups, and it's powerful is the simple way I can say that. And I am going to be speaking in Myrtle Beach. A mutual friend of Lisa and mine, Ronnie Tsunami, who is one of the most brilliant characters I know, is hosting an event called the Success Tsunami in Myrtle Beach. I think it's August 19th to the 23rd, and I am so looking forward to going and hanging out there. So if any of you are interested in that, and by the way, I have like a tiny handful of complimentary tickets to that event, that each of them is worth like $200. And if you want one of those tickets, we're just actually working on a campaign for a bunch of my mastermind participants where we're going to offer those complimentary. If you wanted one, email me. Come to Myrtle Beach in August, and there's a killer roster of fantastic speakers. So that's 3 of 30 things I'm working on right now. And I love to be of service, plain and simple. And Lisa, I just want to say I'm interviewed a lot in lots of places, but I look forward to ours, frankly, more than others for exactly the same reasons you just said, as we get to have a real conversation. And I always appreciate working with you, being with you, and being of service.
Aw, thank you, Jay. It's wonderful to have you here. And, of course, we have more time with Jay because Jay is my one and only featured guest on The Power of Practice, which means that he and I get to enjoy each other on a monthly basis, but more importantly, you guys get to enjoy him on a monthly basis as well. And for all of those reasons that I already said, that's why Jay is my one and only featured guest on this show. So thanks again, Jay, for being here with us today. And thanks to all you viewers. You guys had so much amazing input, great comments. We didn't even get to them, but we'll be sure, Jay and I will be sure to be answering your comments in the event page. If you're watching this in replay and didn't get to show up live, well, we're happy that you're here watching in replay. Please do put your comments, your questions for Jay in the event page, and we'll be sure to answer those as well. We can keep this dialogue going. So that's it for the show today. It is my belief, as we're wrapping up, that each one of us is absolutely capable of radical transformation and achieving quantum breakthroughs in our health and our wealth and our happiness. It's just that sometimes we don't have the tools, the practices, and the resources that we need in order to do that, and that's what this show is all about. So we want to turn those stumbling blocks into stepping stones. And as we wrap up here, just a quick reminder that you can learn more about me and my services and products and programs over at www.innerstatecoaching.com. Again, you can pick up my free report there on how to create radical breakthroughs. That's it for today, you guys. See you all next time. Bye.